house numbers. So you're looking for something like this. Well, let me show you how we make this. And this one is unique in that the letters are raised. It's very similar to any other sign that you'd make, except for the fact that you would do a V-carve where the numbers would be cut into the material. We're going to raise the letters or the numbers off of the stock in this case. So let's begin by opening up Carveco. And we're going to use a stock size, new model stock size of 14 inches wide by 8 inches tall. You can put your origin in the center, or you can put it on the left side, back side, either where, it doesn't matter. You can put it wherever you like. Typically I choose the center. Now I've oversized this stock by roughly 1 inch on each side, and that will allow you to clamp the stock in place. You can also use the blue tape and CA glue trick or carpet tape. In most cases I tend to clamp down my stock on each side to hold it still. That way I know it's flat and I know it's not going anywhere. Alright, so starting with the stock that is 1 inch oversized, we need to create a square. We'll start anywhere and create a square. We know that it's 1 inch over, so we're looking for 12 on a width. We're looking for 6 for a height. And we want to come down here and click create. If you don't click create, the square will disappear when you make your next move. So click create. Click F9 to put it in the center. Go back to your cursor and click off of it to deactivate that square. So this is the center of our carving. This is where the numbers will be, obviously. So we go over to text. Over here where the T is, click the T. Click anywhere on top of your work area. And the font that I chose, if you go over here to the right, was called Rye. Let's see if we can locate that by scrolling down. There are tricks that you can do here, but for the sake of simplicity, I know what the font was I used, so I don't need to type it out and then scroll through and look for the font that I like. I already know that I like this one. So let's put in the numbers, 408. Pardon me, and as you can see, they're extremely small. We're not going to worry about that. Let's click create. Let's push F9 to put them in the center. Let's go over here to the transform tool and click on that. And now we can zoom in, and as you can see, we can grab the corner and stretch these out. And if you stretch from the corner, it maintains its aspect ratio. It doesn't distort the numbers, and we just keep doing this until we have it to our liking within that square. If we look at it, we get it roughly, that looks pretty close. Let's continue to hit F9 and put it in the middle to determine whether we like this or not. Looks pretty good. Let's stretch it just a little bit by grabbing this little bullet over here. We'll pull it this way, and we will pull it this way. Hitting F9 again. We continue to hit F9 to put it back in the center. Now, I don't like these little, let me click off of this. Click back on the cursor. I don't like these little hollow areas in the numbers. So the way we're going to get around this is we're going to click on the numbers one more time. We're going to go over here to ungroup. We're going to hold down until the fly out menu comes out. We're going to click ungroup, click off of them again, and you should be able to click on each number individually. Click ungroup again. You've basically broken apart the numbers from themselves, and now you're breaking apart each individual vector within the numbers. So now we should be able to click on each one of those centers and simply push delete and get rid of them. Now if you liked them in there, that's your preference, that's okay too, but I don't, so we're going to delete them. Very simply done. Clicking on each vector, pushing delete after that, and now we're all set. We're back to where we started. Now in the image that we brought up the first time, let me bring that back up, we have this narrow edge all the way around. There's two ways you can accomplish this. After the carve is done, you can take it back to your table saw and trim off the edges. That's typically what I do a lot of the times. Or, let's go back to the other one. You can create an offset vector from your square outward, like so. We'll click on the square, and we'll grab the offset tool. And you can click outward any dimension that you like. So in this case, let's say I chose a 1/2 of an inch outward. It is outward. I want sharp corners. We're going to click offset. And as you can see now, I have created that area. In this case, we're not going to do this. I'm just going to use the table saw to cut this off. However, if you did choose to do it this way, your tool paths would have to change and would be created differently. We're going to keep this simple. We're going to delete the outside and get rid of that. Now to raise the letters, we're going to do a simple V-carve here, and the trick to this is highlighting the square and the numbers. Well, if you click on one or the other, they don't light together. How do you get around that? That's pretty simple. Click on the first square, push shift, left click, drag across, and make sure your highlighting square hits every vector that you want to highlight, and release, and now it has them all. The other thing you can do, if we click off of everything, we can drag the center across again and regroup them by coming back over here, waiting for the flyout menu to come out, click on those, and now these are regrouped again. So in this case, we could left click, drag, pick up just a section of that number and release, and now it's all highlighted. Once you have this completed, go to V-carve, the V-carve toolpath over here, and start depth is 0. Maximum depth is whatever you choose, but in this case, we're going to go 1/4 of an inch. That's correct. We're going to click to select a carving tool. This is your finishing tool. We're going to use a V-bit, obviously. We're going to use a 60-degree V-bit in this case. Select that. If we click on it again, we can adjust feed rates, we can adjust step over, and etc. I'm going to leave it right where it is at 40 inches a minute. And we'll scroll down and pick the next tool, which will be your roughing tool. That'll hog away the majority of the material and allow the V-bit to come back in and clean up. So we're going to use an 1/8 inch in this case. Select that. Again, if you click on this, you can change all of these settings. I'm not changing a single thing here. I'm happy with everything the way it is. Step over at 0.06, and a general rule is step over on an end mill is half the diameter of the end mill. So this is all correct, and we should be good. I have a safe Z of 0.1. I have to define the material. That'll be 3/4 of an inch, 0.75. Click OK. And we can give it a name. We can call it numbers if we like. It's not necessary, but we can do so. Click calculate. We have intersecting vectors. Uh-oh. So let's close this out. Let's close this. Highlight this. Go to the vector doctor up here. And let's identify what we have as intersecting vectors. Identify. I don't see any on there. Do we have a copy or a duplicate of those numbers? Let's test that out. Click on the numbers and push delete. We don't have a duplicate. Let's highlight them again and identify. Ah, it's in the corners. Let's clear the markers. Click off of it. Click the square once more. Push delete. And that was the problem. We had overlapping vectors. What that means is there is 2 sets of vectors and your eye can't see those. That trick that I just did will help you in a lot of cases. Highlight the vector, push delete. When it goes away, you know now that you do not have any overlapping vectors. Push the undo arrow and it brings them back. We can shut off the vector doctor now, and let's try again. V-carve, same thing, 0.25, select a tool. We said 60-degree V-bit. Click that, select. Scrolling down to collect or select a end mill. Select this. Everything else is already set. We did name it. Let's call it numbers again, and let's calculate now and see what happens. Bing, bang, boom. It worked that time. Close out your tool paths. Close out the offset menu. Double click the tools. This toolpath does not exist, so you can right click that and delete it. And you can right click on this, simulate the toolpath, and simulate, and let's see what we get. We have house numbers. And what we can do in this case is click on simulation. I'll show you how I made the picture pop the way I did. If you click on simulation, drop down here to depth of color, click depth of color, click apply, and you can see that it got a lot darker in there. Material, if we click on simulation default, it'll give you a drop down menu and you can pick any one of these other colors that you prefer. So let's try medium oak, for example, and click apply. And as you can see, we now have the numbers that we had in the beginning. It looks very similar to the other set. I just blew the other set up and brought it in. So that's the programming. Now you would save the toolpaths in the same way you always do. Click on this, save the toolpaths. What I typically do is come over to this side and save in separate files. So we'll click that. What that's going to do is it's going to allow you to run the tools without having a bit setter or Pawn CNC's collars. Now I happen to have Pawn CNC's collars and we could use those, but if you don't have such a thing, what'll happen is you'll run the first toolpath as if it's its very own file. It'll cut in and do all the roughing, and then the machine will stop. It doesn't ask you for a tool change, it just stops. It thinks it's the end of the program. And then you would go to the finishing file and load that, re-zero for Z. Don't change your X and Y, re-zero for Z. And run again, and it will do the finishing passes. Let's go out to the shop, and I'll show you how that happens. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole zeroing process with you, but I do want to point out one thing. A lot of times when I do use the center, I'll put in a very, very sharp bit. By that I mean sharp angle. This happens to be a 30-degree V-bit, and it allows for a lot greater accuracy for finding center. I will find center with this, zero out X and Y, raise it up, put the correct bit into the machine, lower it back down, and zero for the Z. Not going to go through all that. You guys have seen that 1,000 times. Let's get to carving. One other thing, as you can see, I've got some Oramask on here. I don't always have the best luck with Oramask, but if you're going to do one of these signs and you're going to paint it the way I am, it's worth a shot. Put the Oramask on, we'll do the carving, then we will spray paint everything and then peel the Oramask off, and it should leave us with the raised letters that are the original color of the wood. Now, if it doesn't work, that's no big deal because I've got a sander and I'll just sand off the paint. But this may work. Oh, and while I've got you, these are Pawn CNC's collars. They will go in and hit the collet and give you an exact depth for the bit. You take this one out, you put the next one back in, the collar hits the bottom of the collet, bing, bang, boom, exactly the same. We're not going to use these in this case. We're going to do the process as I said inside. We're going to zero for the first bit, run the bit, come back in, put the next bit in, zero for Z only, and run it again and see what we end up with. As you can see, my good fortune with the Oramask continues. This stuff works great. I'm not knocking Oramask. It's really a good product. I know a lot of people that use it and have great success with it. I'm sure it's something that I'm doing wrong. If any of y'all can put something in the comments to give me a hand with that, I sure would appreciate it. I sand the surface. I spray it with a couple of 2-3 coats of polyacrylic. I can't talk today. Polyacrylic. Apply the Oramask, and even with a down cut bit, it tears this stuff right back off. Any insight, I'd appreciate it. Now, what we're going to do is bring the machine back over. We're going to change to the 60-degree V-bit, and I'm going to zero for the height off of this right here. Only Z, not changing X and Y. Let's do it. Let's rock and roll. We are back inside the shop that's not the shop, and I'm laying that board across there. We call that a bridge. You can rest your wrist and your arm on it to steady your paintbrush while you're painting, and you don't have to rest your hand on the object that you're painting. You can put blocks alongside it, etc., however you want to do this. It's just a way to steady your hand and get your brush above what you're painting. Now I'm going to call this a happy accident. This painting has 2 coats of polyacrylic, 2 coats of black paint, and we're applying acrylic paint with the brush on the top. And it didn't go on the way I thought, but I kind of like the way it's going on. To me, by bouncing the brush up and down on it, it looks a lot like granite. So I'm really happy with the way this is coming out. As always, I hope you learned something from this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a like, share if you think it's worthy, subscribe if you think I did a good job, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody.